Sophia Grant had been the chief financial officer of Meridian Technologies for 8 months when she discovered the discrepancies. Small at first, decimal points in quarterly reports that didn't quite align, expense accounts that seemed slightly inflated, invoices for vendors she couldn't verify in the company database. Any one irregularity could have been a clerical error. But together, over the course of 3 months of careful investigation she'd conducted after hours in her locked office, they formed a pattern. Someone was embezzling from Meridian, and whoever it was had been doing it for years, siphoning millions of dollars through carefully constructed shell companies and fraudulent vendor accounts. The problem was that all the evidence pointed to one person, Richard Dalton, the company's chief operating officer and the CEO's closest friend for over 20 years. Sophia sat in her office at 11 p.m. on a Friday, the building empty except for security, staring at the file she'd compiled. Bank statements, forged signatures, email trails carefully extracted from archived servers, everything documented, everything irrefutable, everything that would destroy CEO Marcus Chen's trust in the person he considered family. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Still at the office? Go home, Sophia. The numbers will still be there Monday." Sophia smiled despite the weight of what she carried. Marcus was a good CEO, demanding but fair, brilliant but humble, the kind of leader who remembered birthdays and asked about his employees' families. He'd hired Sophia specifically to bring fresh perspective to Meridian's financial operations, telling her he wanted someone who wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo. "Just finishing up," Sophia texted back. "See you Monday." What she didn't say: "I'm finishing up the file that proves your best friend has been stealing from you for at least 5 years." Sophia locked the evidence in her desk, the physical documents at least. The digital files were encrypted on 3 separate secure drives, hidden in different locations. She'd learned from her previous position at a hedge fund that whistleblowers who kept only 1 copy of evidence often found themselves with no evidence at all. Monday morning, Sophia arrived at her office to find Richard Dalton waiting in her doorway. "Sophia," Richard said, his trademark charming smile in place. He was in his late 40s, handsome in a polished corporate way, with silver threading through his dark hair and expensive suits that screamed success. "Got a minute? I wanted to discuss the Q3 projections." "Of course," Sophia said, unlocking her office with hands that wanted to shake. Richard had never sought her out directly before. They interacted during board meetings and executive briefings, but he typically went through his own finance team for operational questions. Richard settled into the chair across from her desk, his posture relaxed. "I've been reviewing the expense reports you flagged last month, the ones questioning vendor verification protocols." Sophia's stomach tightened. "Standard audit procedure. I flag anything that seems unusual for follow-up." "Of course," Richard agreed smoothly. "And normally, I'd appreciate the thoroughness. But, Sophia, some of these vendors have been working with Meridian for years. Questioning their legitimacy could damage important relationships. If they're legitimate, verification should be straightforward," Sophia replied carefully. "I'm just ensuring our financial controls meet industry standards." "Industry standards," Richard repeated, something flickering behind his pleasant expression. "You know, Sophia, you're still fairly new here. Sometimes understanding the history of certain business relationships takes time, context that might not be immediately apparent from spreadsheets." It wasn't quite a threat, but it wasn't friendly advice either. Sophia recognized the tone, the subtle warning that she was overstepping, that she should back off. "I appreciate the context," Sophia said, meeting his eyes, "but my responsibility is to ensure financial accuracy and transparency. That's what Marcus hired me to do." "Marcus," Richard said, and something in how he used the CEO's first name, casual, possessive, reminded Sophia exactly how deep their relationship went. "Marcus trusts my judgment. We've built this company together from the ground up. I'd hate for him to think his new CFO was questioning his foundational partnerships." There it was, the implicit threat. Question me, and you're questioning Marcus. Create problems, and you'll be the one who looks disloyal. After Richard left, Sophia sat at her desk processing the interaction. He knew she was investigating, which meant he was either getting sloppy or she'd triggered some kind of alert in the system he'd set up to monitor for exactly this kind of scrutiny. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. Conference room in 10. Board wants Q3 overview. The presentation went smoothly. Meridian was performing well despite the embezzlement Sophia had uncovered, which spoke to how successful the company's core business was. Richard sat 2 seats down from Marcus, occasionally offering insights, playing the role of supportive COO perfectly. Sophia watched him charm the board members, watched Marcus smile at his jokes and defer to his operational expertise. 20 years of friendship, 20 years of trust. And Sophia was about to shatter all of it with evidence that Richard had been stealing for at least 5 of those years. After the meeting, Marcus caught up with her in the hallway. Good presentation. The board's impressed with how you've streamlined our financial reporting. Thank you, Sophia said. Marcus, do you have time this week for a one-on-one? There are some things I'd like to discuss privately. Sounds serious, Marcus observed, his expression concerned. Everything okay? It's... Sophia paused, acutely aware that Richard was 30 feet away talking to the VP of sales, possibly within earshot. It's sensitive. I'd prefer to discuss it in private. Thursday afternoon work? Say 3 p.m. my office. Perfect, Sophia agreed, her stomach knotting. 3 days to prepare for the conversation that would either establish her as a trusted advisor or get her fired for making accusations against the CEO's best friend. That evening, Sophia was working late again when her office door opened. She looked up expecting security and found Marcus instead. You're here late, Marcus observed, settling into the chair Richard had occupied that morning. Sophia, you've been working 70-hour weeks since you started. That's not sustainable. Just want to make sure I'm doing the job right, Sophia said. You are, Marcus assured her. But you look stressed. Is something wrong? Beyond normal new executive pressure? Sophia looked at him. This CEO who'd hired her specifically for her integrity and analytical skills, who'd told her during the interview process that he valued truth over comfort. She made a decision. Can I ask you something? Sophia said carefully. About company culture and reporting concerns. Always, Marcus replied. If an employee discovered something problematic, financially problematic, what would be the proper protocol for reporting it? Marcus's expression shifted, becoming more alert. Define problematic. Hypothetically, if there were evidence of financial irregularities, possibly fraud, what would be the process for bringing that to leadership's attention without... Sophia paused, choosing words carefully. Without damaging important relationships or making accusations that might not be fully understood without context. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Sophia, is this hypothetical? Sophia started, then stopped. She'd already said too much, or not enough. I have concerns, serious ones, but I'm still gathering information, and I don't want to create alarm prematurely. If you have evidence of fraud, I need to know, Marcus said firmly, immediately, regardless of who's involved or what relationships might be affected. That's not negotiable, Sophia. If something's wrong, I need to fix it. Even if the person involved is someone you trust completely, Sophia asked quietly. Marcus went very still. Especially then. Sophia, who are we talking about? I'm not ready to make formal accusations, Sophia said, backtracking. I need more time to verify everything, to make absolutely certain before you accuse someone specific, Marcus finished. Sophia, how bad is this? Bad, Sophia admitted. Potentially millions of dollars over several years, but, Marcus, I need to be absolutely certain before I present anything formal. She took a breath. I need until Thursday, our scheduled meeting. Can you give me until then? Marcus looked torn between demanding answers immediately and respecting her process. Thursday, he agreed finally. But Sophia, if this involves active fraud, we can't wait long. Every day that passes is potentially more damage. I understand, Sophia said. Thursday. I'll have everything documented and verified by then. After Marcus left, Sophia pulled the file from her locked drawer and added notes from Richard's visit that morning. His subtle warnings, his emphasis on trust and long relationships, his implication that questioning him was questioning Marcus. It all painted a picture of someone who knew he was being investigated and was positioning himself to discredit any accusations before they were made. Tuesday morning, Sophia arrived to find an email from IT. Per COO Dalton's request, your system access is being audited for security compliance. Please provide your passwords and encryption keys for all company files by end of business today. Sophia's hands went cold. This was Richard making a move. If he got access to her files, her encrypted evidence, he could delete or alter everything before she presented it to Marcus. She immediately called IT. This audit request, is it standard procedure? Mr. Dalton said it was part of a company-wide security upgrade, the IT manager James replied. But honestly, Ms. Grant, it's unusual. We don't typically require encryption keys from C-suite executives. That defeats the purpose of secure files. Can you delay it? Sophia asked. Tell Richard you need time to properly document the process or something? I can stall for maybe a day, James said carefully. But Ms. Grant, if Mr. Dalton is pushing this, I have to comply eventually. He's my boss's boss. After hanging up, Sophia made copies of everything. Physical documents photographed and uploaded to personal cloud storage, digital files backed up to drives she immediately took off-site. If Richard was going to try to destroy evidence, he'd find that task significantly harder than expected. Wednesday afternoon, Sophia was reviewing financial statements when her assistant, Kelly, knocked nervously. Ms. Grant, Mr. Dalton is asking for you in his office. He says it's urgent. Did he say what it's about? Sophia asked. No, but... Kelly lowered her voice. He seemed angry. I've never seen him anything but charming before. Sophia saved her work, locked her computer, and headed to Richard's office with her phone recording in her pocket. If this was going to be a confrontation, she wanted documentation. Richard was standing by his window when she entered, his back to the door. Close it, he said without turning around. Sophia closed the door but stayed near it, maintaining an exit route. I know what you're doing, Richard said, turning to face her. The charming mask was gone, replaced by cold calculation. You're building a case against me. Don't bother denying it. I've been monitoring your system activity, the files you've been accessing, the questions you've been asking. If you've been monitoring my activity without authorization, that's a violation of company policy, Sophia said, keeping her voice steady. Company policy, Richard laughed bitterly. Sophia, I helped write company policy. I built this company with Marcus from nothing. And you've been here 8 months, and you think you understand how things work. I understand fraud, Sophia replied. I understand embezzlement, and I understand that no matter how long you've been here or who your friends are, stealing millions of dollars is illegal. You can't prove anything, Richard said, but something flickered in his expression. Uncertainty maybe, or fear. Actually, I can, Sophia replied. Bank statements, forged signatures, shell companies traced back to your personal accounts. I have everything, Richard. And Thursday afternoon I'm presenting it all to Marcus. Marcus won't believe you, Richard said, but his voice lacked conviction. I've been his partner for 20 years. You're a CFO he hired 8 months ago. Who do you think he'll trust? He'll trust the evidence, Sophia said. That's why you're so worried, isn't it? Because the evidence is ironclad, and even 20 years of friendship won't trump documentation of systematic theft. Richard moved closer, and Sophia's hand went to the door handle. You have no idea what you're risking, Richard said quietly. Your career, your reputation, your safety. Are you threatening me? Sophia asked, making sure her phone captured every word. I'm warning you, Richard corrected. Walk away from this, Sophia. Delete the files, tell Marcus you made a mistake and move on. Do that and we can all forget this happened. And if I don't? Then I'll make sure everyone in this industry knows you're unstable, Richard said flatly. That you made wild accusations against a respected executive because you couldn't handle the pressure of a C-suite position. Your career will be over before you're 40. That's assuming Marcus believes you over-documented evidence, Sophia pointed out. Marcus is my best friend, Richard said. We've built everything together. You're gambling that proof matters more than 20 years of loyalty. That's a dangerous bet, Sophia. It's not a bet, Sophia replied. It's doing the right thing. And I'm not backing down, Richard. Thursday at 3 p.m. Marcus gets the full file. You can either confess before then or deal with the consequences after. But this ends either way. She left before he could respond, her heart pounding. her hands shaking. Back in her office, she immediately backed up the recording of the confrontation, sent copies to her personal email, and called a lawyer she'd retained specifically for this situation. "He knows," Sophia told the lawyer, "and he's threatening to destroy my career if I don't back off." "Which means you're onto something real," the lawyer replied. "Sophia, document everything, every threat, every intimidation attempt. It all supports your case and protects you if he tries to retaliate." That night, Sophia barely slept. She kept imagining the conversation with Marcus, how to present evidence against his best friend, how to make him see that Richard wasn't who Marcus thought he was. Thursday morning arrived too quickly. Sophia was at her desk by 6 a.m., reviewing her documentation one final time, making sure every claim was supported by irrefutable evidence. At 10 a.m., Marcus's assistant called. "Ms. Grant, Mr. Chen needs to move your 3 p.m. meeting. Can you do 10:30 instead? He says it's important." Sophia's stomach dropped. Richard had gotten to Marcus first, had started spinning his narrative before she could present evidence. "I'll be right there," Sophia said. She grabbed the physical file, the backup documentation she'd kept separate from everything else, and headed to Marcus's office, her heart pounding. This was it, the moment that would either establish her integrity or end her career. Marcus's door was closed. Sophia knocked and Marcus's voice called, "Come in." She opened the door and stopped. Marcus was behind his desk, his expression unreadable, and sitting in the guest chair, looking calm and confident, was Richard Dalton. "Sophia," Marcus said, "Richard tells me you've made some serious accusations. I think it's time we discussed them, all of us together." Sophia stood in the doorway, the file clutched in her hands, processing the scene before her. Richard had beaten her to Marcus. The confrontation she'd carefully planned for a private meeting was now happening with the accused, sitting right there, smiling that calm, confident smile. "Come in, Sophia," Marcus said again, his tone neutral. "Close the door." Sophia entered, closing the door behind her. She took the remaining chair, positioning herself so she could see both men. Richard looked relaxed, almost amused. Marcus looked tired and disappointed. "Richard came to me this morning," Marcus began. "He said you've been investigating him for fraud, that you've made accusations of embezzlement and threatened to destroy his reputation unless he—" Marcus paused. "Unless he resigned and left quietly." Sophia felt her blood go cold. "That's not what happened." "I didn't think so," Marcus said, and something in his tone made Sophia look at him more carefully. His expression wasn't disappointed in her. It was disappointed in the situation. "Which is why I moved our meeting up. Richard, you said Sophia confronted you yesterday in your office and made demands. I'd like to hear her version now." Richard's smile faltered slightly. "Marcus, I've already explained." "And now I want to hear from Sophia," Marcus interrupted. "Without commentary, Richard. Sophia, what's in that file?" Sophia opened the folder, her hands steadier than she expected. Evidence of systematic embezzlement spanning at least 5 years. Shell companies, falsified vendor accounts, forged signatures on approval documents. Approximately $8.3 million siphoned from Meridian through fraudulent expenses and ghost contractors. She laid out the first document, a bank statement showing transfers from a Meridian vendor account to a shell company registered in Richard's name. "This is one of 15 shell companies I've traced back to Richard's control," Sophia continued. "Each one receives payments from Meridian for services never rendered or products never delivered. The invoices are approved through Richard's office, bypassing normal verification protocols. Those are legitimate business expenses," Richard interjected. "Consultants, specialized services—" "Consultants who don't exist," Sophia interrupted, pulling out the next set of documents. "I contacted every vendor on these invoices. 12 of them have no record of ever working with Meridian. 3 others confirmed they were paid significantly less than the invoice amounts show, with the difference going to accounts they were told were for administrative processing fees." She looked at Marcus, whose expression had gone from tired to coldly focused. "Marcus, I have bank statements, email trails, incorporation documents for the shell companies, testimony from vendors who were part of the scheme, often unknowingly. I have 5 years of documented evidence." "This is fabricated," Richard said. his voice rising slightly. "Marcus, she's new. She doesn't understand our operational structure." "I understand fraud," Sophia said firmly. "And Richard, you confirmed as much yesterday when you threatened to destroy my career if I didn't drop the investigation." "I never," Richard started. "You did," Sophia interrupted, pulling out her phone. "And I recorded it. Would you like me to play the conversation where you admitted I had evidence you couldn't refute, then threatened to blacklist me from the industry if I reported it to Marcus?" The room went silent. Richard's face had lost color, his confident posture crumbling. Marcus looked at Richard with an expression Sophia couldn't quite read. "You threatened her." "Marcus, you have to understand," Richard began. "Did you threaten my CFO for doing her job?" Marcus's voice was quiet, dangerous. "I was trying to protect the company," Richard said desperately. "These accusations, even if they're unfounded, could damage our reputation, affect our stock price." "Are they unfounded?" Marcus asked. "Richard, look at me. Are these accusations unfounded?" Richard opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. The silence stretched. "I need to hear you say it," Marcus continued. "Did you embezzle $8 million from Meridian?" "It's not that simple," Richard said finally. "Marcus, you have to understand. The company was struggling in those early years. I took loans to keep us afloat, used company resources as collateral. I was going to pay it back." "That's not what this is," Sophia interrupted, pulling out more documents. "These aren't loans, Richard. These are systematic thefts disguised as legitimate expenses. You've been stealing consistently for 5 years, long after Meridian became profitable. This isn't desperation. It's opportunistic fraud." "You don't understand what we built," Richard said, his voice breaking. "What I sacrificed. I worked 80-hour weeks, put my entire life into this company. I deserved—" "You deserved your salary and your equity stake," Marcus said, his voice hard. "Both of which are substantial. What you didn't deserve was to steal from the company we built together. Richard, how could you? How could you look me in the eye for 5 years while stealing millions?" "I was going to stop," Richard said desperately. "I was planning to pay it back." "No, you weren't," Sophia said quietly. "The transactions continued through last month. You set up a new shell company 3 weeks ago, right around when I started asking questions about vendor verification. You weren't planning to stop. You were planning to get better at hiding it." Marcus stood, walking to the window, his back to both of them. The silence was suffocating. "How long have you known?" Richard asked Sophia, his voice hollow. 3 months, Sophia replied. "I've been documenting everything, making sure every piece of evidence was verifiable and admissible. I wanted to be absolutely certain before bringing this to Marcus." "Because you knew it would destroy our friendship," Richard said bitterly. "Because I knew it was that serious," Sophia corrected. "Because accusations of this magnitude require ironclad proof. And because—" She looked at Marcus's back. "Because I knew it would hurt him." Marcus turned from the window. "Sophia, can you give Richard and me a few minutes alone?" "Are you sure that's—" Sophia started. "I need to speak with him privately," Marcus said firmly. "Please." Sophia gathered her documents, leaving copies on Marcus's desk. As she reached the door, Marcus spoke again. "Sophia, thank you. For your integrity. For not looking the away. For—" His voice caught slightly. "For doing the right thing even when it was difficult. I'm sorry," Sophia said quietly. "I know how much he means to you." "He meant everything to me," Marcus corrected, past tense. "We'll sort out the rest this afternoon." Sophia waited in her office, unable to focus on anything. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, Marcus's assistant called. "Mr. Chen needs you back in his office." When Sophia entered, Richard was gone. Marcus sat behind his desk, looking 10 years older than he had that morning. "Richard has resigned," Marcus said without preamble. "Effective immediately. He's been escorted from the building and his access to all systems has been terminated. I've contacted our legal team and the FBI's white-collar crime division. They'll be here tomorrow to begin a formal investigation." "I'm sorry," Sophia said. "Don't be," Marcus replied. "You did exactly what I hired you to do. Richard made his choices. He stole from this company, from our employees, from me personally. The fact that we were friends doesn't excuse that. If anything, it makes it worse. Are you okay? Sophia asked carefully. No, Marcus said honestly, but I will be. And Sophia, I need you to understand something. What you did, uncovering this, documenting it meticulously, bringing it to me despite knowing how difficult it would be, that's the kind of integrity this company needs. I'm grateful you didn't let friendship or loyalty or any other consideration stop you from doing what was right. I was afraid you wouldn't believe me, Sophia admitted. I know, Marcus said. Richard told me you'd make accusations, that you were unstable, that you couldn't handle the pressure of the CFO role. He tried to discredit you before you could present evidence. That's when I knew he was guilty. Innocent people don't preemptively attack their accusers. Sophia sat down, the adrenaline of the past few days finally catching up with her. What happens now? Now we cooperate fully with the FBI investigation, Marcus said. We'll recover what we can, though realistically much of it is probably gone. We'll implement new financial controls to ensure this can't happen again, and we'll be transparent with our board and shareholders about what happened. That's going to hurt the stock price, Sophia observed. Probably, Marcus agreed, but hiding it would be worse. And Sophia, I need you to lead the remediation effort. Work with the investigators. Help them understand the full scope of what Richard did. Implement whatever controls are necessary. Can you do that? Yes, Sophia said without hesitation. Over the following weeks, the full extent of Richard's fraud emerged. 8.3 million was just the beginning. The FBI investigation uncovered additional schemes dating back nearly 7 years, bringing the total to over $12 million. Richard had used the money to fund a lifestyle that exceeded even his substantial executive salary, a vacation home in Aspen, luxury cars, private school tuition for his children. The thing that kills me, Marcus told Sophia one evening as they reviewed investigation updates, is that I would have given him anything he needed. If he was struggling financially, if his kids' education costs were overwhelming, I would have helped. Instead, he stole and lied to my face for 7 years. People who commit fraud rarely do it out of genuine necessity, Sophia said gently. It's about entitlement. Richard believed he deserved more than he was getting, so he took it. The board meeting to discuss the fraud was brutal. Several members questioned how Marcus could have missed such systematic theft happening under his nose. Others asked why it took a new CFO only 8 months to discover what internal audits had missed for years. Because no one was looking, Sophia said bluntly when asked directly. Richard had been with Meridian since founding. He had complete trust from leadership and board members. Internal audits focused on external threats, not executive-level fraud. I found it because I didn't have that history of trust. I looked at everything with fresh, skeptical eyes. And that skepticism saved this company millions more in potential losses, Marcus added firmly. Sophia Grant's integrity and thoroughness prevented this from becoming a catastrophe that destroyed Meridian completely. I consider her actions heroic, not just competent. After the board meeting, as executives filed out, one of the board members, Margaret Walsh, who'd been with Meridian since the early days, pulled Sophia aside. That took courage, Margaret said quietly. Accusing the COO of fraud when you'd been here less than a year. Most people would have looked the other way, not wanted to make waves. I couldn't do that, Sophia said simply. I know, Margaret replied. That's why you're the right CFO for this company. Marcus needs people who will tell him hard truths, not people who will protect his feelings. The FBI investigation concluded 4 months after Richard's resignation. He was indicted on 15 counts of wire fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. Faced with overwhelming evidence, much of it originally compiled by Sophia, Richard accepted a plea deal, 7 years in federal prison and full restitution of the stolen funds. 7 years, Marcus said when he heard the news. For destroying a friendship and stealing millions, it doesn't feel like enough. It never does, Sophia replied. They were in Marcus's office, going over the final investigation reports. But he'll lose his career, his reputation, his freedom. And Meridian survives. That's what matters. Thanks to you, Marcus said. Sophia, I've been thinking. The board wants to expand your role, Chief Financial Officer and Chief Compliance Officer, essentially making you responsible for all financial oversight and ethical compliance going forward. Significant raise, expanded team, seat on the executive committee. Interested? Sophia looked at him carefully. That's a lot of responsibility. You've proven you can handle it, Marcus said. More importantly, you've proven you'll handle it with integrity. That's more valuable than experience or credentials. What do you say? I say yes, Sophia replied. On one condition. What's that? If I uncover something problematic again, even if it involves someone you care about, you'll listen, Sophia said. No matter how difficult the truth is. Always, Marcus promised. I've learned that lesson the hard way. Truth matters more than comfort. Evidence matters more than friendship. And integrity. He paused. Integrity is the only thing that actually protects us. 6 months after Richard's indictment, Sophia was working late when Marcus knocked on her office door. Going home soon? He asked. Soon, Sophia promised. Just finishing the quarterly report. It's 9 p.m. on a Friday, Marcus observed. The quarterly report can wait until Monday. Old habits, Sophia admitted. I spent so many late nights here investigating Richard, it became routine. Marcus settled into the chair across from her desk, the same chair Richard had sat in when he'd tried to intimidate her into dropping the investigation. The memory felt distant now, like something that had happened to someone else. Can I ask you something? Marcus said. When you first discovered the discrepancies, before you knew it was Richard, what made you keep digging? Most people would have rationalized it away, assumed it was clerical errors or legitimate expenses they didn't understand. Curiosity, Sophia said, and stubbornness. The numbers didn't make sense, and I needed to understand why. When Richard's name kept appearing in the audit trail, I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was too clear to ignore. You could have ignored it, Marcus pointed out. Could have decided it wasn't your problem, that investigating the COO was above your pay grade. That's not who I am, Sophia said simply. My job is to ensure financial integrity. I can't do that job if I'm selective about what I investigate based on who's involved. I know, Marcus said. That's why I trust you completely now. Sophia, you could have destroyed this company, reporting to the board or shareholders before coming to me, leaking the information. Any number of ways you could have handled it that would have been disastrous. But you came to me privately, gave me the evidence, let me handle it appropriately. That discretion combined with your integrity, that's rare. I didn't want to hurt the company, Sophia said. Or you. I just wanted the fraud to stop. It did, Marcus replied. And Meridian is stronger now because of you. Our financial controls are industry-leading, our compliance program is rigorous, and our board knows we have leadership that won't tolerate ethical breaches regardless of who's involved. He stood to leave, then paused. Richard called me last week from prison, asked if I'd visit him. Are you going to? Sophia asked. No, Marcus said. Maybe someday, but right now, I'm still too angry. At him for stealing, for lying, for betraying everything we built together, and at myself for not seeing it sooner. You trusted him, Sophia said gently. That's not a flaw, Marcus. It's human. Trust without verification is negligence, Marcus replied. That's another lesson I've learned, thanks to you. After Marcus left, Sophia locked the file on Richard Dalton, now just archived evidence of a closed case, and headed home. The investigation that had consumed her life for months was over. Richard was in prison, Meridian had survived, and Sophia had proven something crucial, that integrity mattered more than politics, that truth mattered more than loyalty, and that doing the right thing was worth the risk even when the cost was high. The file she'd hidden from the CEO had revealed the truth, and the truth, painful as it was, had saved the company. 1 year after Richard Dalton's arrest, Meridian Technologies held its annual company meeting. Sophia stood at the podium, now officially Chief Financial Officer and Chief Compliance Officer, presenting the year's financial results to a packed auditorium of employees. Revenue up 18%, Sophia announced, advancing the slide. Profit margins improved by 7 points. Stock price recovered to pre-scandal levels and is now climbing steadily. We've implemented comprehensive financial controls that have been recognized as industry-leading. And most importantly, we've rebuilt trust with our board, with our shareholders, and with each other. The applause was genuine. Meridian had survived what should have been a company-killing scandal, emerging stronger and more transparent. After the presentation, as employees filtered out discussing bonuses and growth projections, Marcus pulled Sophia aside. "Great presentation," he said, "though you didn't mention the part where all of this recovery is directly attributable to your work." "That's not how I see it," Sophia replied. "The recovery is attributable to everyone who chose to stay, to work harder, to believe Meridian was worth saving. I just helped identify the problem." "You did more than identify it," Marcus said. "You documented it, reported it, and then led the remediation effort that saved us. Sophia, the board wants to discuss succession planning. Specifically, your potential path to CEO." Sophia's eyes widened. "Marcus, I've been CFO for less than 2 years. And in that time, you've proven you have the integrity, strategic thinking, and courage this company needs in leadership." Marcus interrupted. "I'm not retiring tomorrow, but in 5 years, 10? I want to know Meridian will be in hands I trust completely. Yours are those hands." Before Sophia could respond, her assistant approached nervously. "Ms. Grant, there's someone here to see you. She says it's important but won't give her name." Sophia exchanged a glance with Marcus, then followed her assistant to the lobby. A woman in her 30s waited there, dressed professionally but with an anxious energy that reminded Sophia of herself a year ago. "Ms. Grant," the woman said, "I'm Jennifer Park. I work at TechCore Industries as their senior accountant. She paused, looking around nervously. "I need to talk to you about something I've discovered, something financial, and I don't know who else to ask." Sophia recognized the expression on Jennifer's face. She'd worn it herself for 3 months while investigating Richard. That mixture of fear, determination, and desperate need for someone to believe you. "Let's go to my office," Sophia said gently. In her office, Jennifer pulled out a folder that looked eerily similar to the one Sophia had compiled on Richard. Bank statements, expense reports, highlighted discrepancies. "I think my CFO is embezzling," Jennifer said quietly. "I've been documenting it for 2 months, but I don't know what to do. If I'm wrong, I'll destroy my career. If I'm right, but can't prove it, same result. And if I'm right and he finds out I know—" She stopped, fear evident. "You're afraid of retaliation," Sophia finished. "I saw what happened here," Jennifer said. "How you uncovered fraud by a C-suite executive. How you reported it and the company took action. I need to know. How did you do it? How did you find the courage to accuse someone that powerful?" Sophia looked at this young accountant, clearly terrified but determined to do the right thing, and saw herself. "I was terrified," Sophia admitted. "Every day for 3 months while I investigated, I second-guessed everything, wondered if I was wrong, imagined my career ending. But Jennifer, the evidence didn't lie. And once I had irrefutable proof, I couldn't look away." "What if my CEO doesn't believe me?" Jennifer asked. "What if he protects the CFO instead?" "Then you've learned something important about your company's values," Sophia said. "But Jennifer, you can't make that decision for your CEO. You have to give him the chance to do the right thing. Bring him the evidence, document everything, and trust that truth matters more than politics." "That's easy to say when it worked out for you," Jennifer said, not unkindly. "It is," Sophia agreed. "But it almost didn't. The COO I accused was the CEO's best friend for 20 years. I thought there was a real chance Marcus would choose loyalty over evidence, but he didn't. He chose integrity. And if your CEO chooses differently, then you'll know you work for a company that doesn't deserve your talent." Jennifer was quiet for a moment, looking at her folder. "Will you review my evidence? Tell me if I'm crazy, or if I actually have a case." "I'll do better than that," Sophia said. "I'll introduce you to the lawyer who helped me navigate the legal aspects. And if you need someone to go with you when you report this to your CEO, I'll be there." "You don't have to do this alone, Jennifer." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do that? You don't know me." "Because someone should have done it for me," Sophia replied. "I went through this investigation feeling completely isolated, terrified I was making a catastrophic mistake. If I can help someone else not feel that alone, I'm going to do it." Over the next 2 weeks, Sophia worked with Jennifer, reviewing her evidence, connecting her with legal resources, helping her prepare for the conversation with her CEO. When Jennifer finally made her report, Sophia accompanied her, not as TechCore's CFO, but as a witness to Jennifer's integrity. TechCore's CEO listened to the evidence, thanked Jennifer for her diligence, and immediately launched an investigation that confirmed everything Jennifer had documented. The CFO was arrested 3 weeks later for embezzling over $5 million. "You saved my career," Jennifer told Sophia after the arrest was announced. "If I'd tried to do this alone, I would have lost my nerve or made mistakes. Having you there, knowing someone believed me, that made all the difference." "You saved yourself," Sophia corrected. "You did the work, compiled the evidence, found the courage to report it. I just provided support." The story made industry news. 2 major embezzlement cases in 2 years, both uncovered by diligent financial officers who refused to look away from evidence of wrongdoing. Sophia received calls from other CFOs, other accountants, other financial professionals, asking advice about suspicious activities they'd discovered. "I'm becoming the whistleblower consultant," Sophia told Marcus one evening. "People keep asking me how to report fraud without destroying their careers." "That's because you've proven it's possible," Marcus replied. "Most people assume reporting executive-level fraud is career suicide. You've shown that integrity can be rewarded, not punished." "That's powerful, Sophia." 6 months later, Sophia was invited to speak at a financial leadership conference. The topic, Ethics in Executive Oversight, When Evidence Contradicts Loyalty. Standing at the podium, looking out at hundreds of CFOs and financial executives, Sophia thought about the file she'd hidden in her desk drawer a year and a half ago. The evidence she'd been terrified to reveal. The confrontation she'd almost avoided. "I was hired to ensure financial integrity," Sophia began her speech. "What I wasn't prepared for was what happens when ensuring integrity means accusing someone powerful of wrongdoing, when the evidence points to someone the CEO trusts completely, when doing your job means potentially destroying important relationships." She told the story, carefully, protecting confidential details, but being honest about the fear, the doubt, the night she'd almost convinced herself to look the away. "The chief operating officer was the CEO's best friend," Sophia continued. 20 years of partnership, of trust, and I was 8 months into the job, essentially a stranger, about to accuse this man of stealing millions. I was terrified Marcus would choose friendship over evidence, that my career would end because I dared to question someone that powerful. The audience was silent, rapt. "But I had to trust 2 things, Sophia said. First, that the evidence was stronger than politics, and second, that Marcus hired me specifically for my integrity, which meant I had to demonstrate that integrity even when it was difficult. Especially when it was difficult." She advanced her slide to show the key lesson. Truth matters more than comfort. Evidence matters more than loyalty. Integrity is not situational. "When I presented the evidence to Marcus, I didn't know what would happen," Sophia admitted. "I knew I was right. I knew the documentation was irrefutable. But I also knew that being right doesn't always protect you. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you everything. In my case, it didn't. Marcus listened to the evidence, investigated thoroughly, and took action. The COO was arrested, prosecuted, and is now serving 7 years in federal prison. Meridian recovered and is stronger than ever. And I learned something crucial. Integrity isn't about avoiding difficult situations. It's about facing them honestly." After her speech, dozens of executives approached with their own stories, suspicious activities they'd noticed, evidence they'd compiled but were afraid to report, fears about career consequences if they spoke up. "I have proof my company's VP of sales is bribing clients," one CFO told Sophia quietly. "But he's responsible for 60% of our revenue. If I report it and lose those accounts, the company could go under. What do I do?" "You report it," Sophia said firmly. "Because if the revenue is based on bribery, it's not sustainable anyway. And when it inevitably comes out, and it will, the question won't be whether you saved the company. It'll be whether you were complicit in the fraud." Another executive, a young controller, asked, "What if I'm wrong? What if I investigate, and it turns out I misunderstood, and then I've destroyed someone's reputation for nothing?" "That's why you document everything meticulously before you report," Sophia replied. "You don't make accusations based on suspicion. You build an evidence file that's irrefutable. And if you do that work properly, You won't be wrong. 2 years after uncovering Richard's fraud, Sophia received an unexpected letter. It was from Richard himself, now in year 2 of his 7-year sentence. Ms. Grant, I don't expect you to read this, much less respond. But my therapist suggested writing to the people I harmed might be part of accepting responsibility for my actions. You didn't harm me. I harmed myself, Marcus, and Meridian. You simply documented what I'd done and had the courage to report it. For a long time I hated you for that. I told myself you were vindictive, that you wanted to destroy me, that you didn't understand the complexity of the situation. But 2 years of forced reflection has made me realize you were just doing your job. With integrity that I'd lost somewhere along the way, I stole because I felt entitled to more than I was receiving. Because I could. Because I'd gotten away with it for so long that I stopped believing there would ever be consequences. You gave me those consequences. And while I'll spend the next 5 years paying for my choices, I've also spent the last 2 years recognizing how far I'd fallen from the person I thought I was, the person Marcus trusted, the person I should have been. This isn't an apology. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that what you did was right. Even though it destroyed my life, it was necessary. And maybe it prevented me from destroying even more than I already had. Thank you for having the integrity I lacked. Richard Dalton Sophia read the letter twice, trying to process. Marcus, who she'd shown it to, was quiet for a long moment. Do you believe him? Marcus asked finally. I believe he's had time to think about what he did, Sophia said. Whether he's genuinely remorseful or just sorry he got caught, I don't know. But Marcus, it doesn't matter. I didn't report him to reform him. I reported him because stealing $8 million was wrong, and letting it continue would have made me complicit. You saved this company, Marcus said. More than that, you saved its soul. Meridian could have become the kind of place where fraud at the executive level was ignored because the person involved was connected or powerful. Instead, we became a company known for integrity, for holding everyone accountable regardless of position or relationships. That's your legacy, Sophia. 3 years after the investigation, Sophia was promoted to President and Chief Operating Officer, with a clear path to CEO when Marcus retired. The irony wasn't lost on her. She now held the position Richard had occupied when he'd been stealing from the company. Think you'll be tempted? Marcus joked during the promotion announcement. The COO position comes with a lot of power, and apparently, opportunity for embezzlement. I'll try to resist, Sophia replied dryly, though having a CFO who's paranoid about fraud should help keep me honest. The new CFO, a woman named Patricia Chen, who'd been recruited specifically for her reputation for aggressive financial oversight, laughed. Don't worry, I'll be watching everything. Trust but verify. That's exactly right, Sophia said. Trust but verify. That should be Meridian's motto. 5 years after hiding that first file in her desk drawer, Sophia stood in her office, now the COO's office, the same space Richard had occupied, and looked at the company she'd helped save. The evidence she'd compiled was archived now, pulled out occasionally for training sessions on fraud detection or case studies on corporate ethics. Richard was 3 years into his sentence, with 4 more to go. Meridian had not only recovered but thrived, its reputation for integrity attracting top talent and investors. And Sophia had learned something crucial. Doing the right thing didn't always cost you everything. Sometimes it cost you nothing but fear and uncertainty. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, it was rewarded. Ready for the board meeting? Marcus asked, appearing in her doorway. They want to discuss the CEO transition timeline. Ready, Sophia confirmed, grabbing her tablet. As they walked to the conference room, Marcus said quietly, You know, when I hired you, I told you I wanted someone who wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo, to ask hard questions, to value truth over comfort. I remember, Sophia said. I didn't know how seriously you'd take that, Marcus continued, or how much it would cost both of us when you did exactly what I asked. But Sophia, I wouldn't change anything. Losing Richard, losing that friendship, was the most painful thing I've experienced professionally, but it taught me that loyalty without accountability is just enabling, and that the people who will tell you hard truths are more valuable than the people who will protect your feelings. "Thank you for listening," Sophia said, "for believing the evidence even when it meant accepting something devastating about someone you loved." "Thank you for giving me that chance," Marcus replied. "For coming to me privately instead of going to the board or the authorities first. For trusting that I'd do the right thing when faced with proof." In the boardroom, as they discussed Sophia's path to CEO, one of the board members asked the question that had defined her career at Meridian. "Ms. Grant, in your time as CFO and now COO, what's the most important lesson you've learned about leadership?" Sophia thought about the file she'd hidden, the confrontation with Richard, the moment Marcus had chosen evidence over friendship, the young accountants who'd reached out for advice, the letter from Richard accepting responsibility. "That integrity isn't situational," Sophia said finally. "It's not something you practice when it's convenient or abandon when it's difficult. It's the foundation of everything else, and that sometimes doing the right thing means risking everything, your career, your relationships, your comfort. But not doing the right thing costs even more." She paused, meeting Marcus's eyes. "I learned that from the CEO who chose truth over loyalty, who listened to evidence even when it destroyed a friendship. That's the kind of leader I aspire to be." The board voted unanimously to approve Sophia's transition to CEO, effective when Marcus retired in 2 years. That evening, Sophia returned to her office and pulled out the original file, the evidence that had started everything. She'd kept it archived, a reminder of what integrity had cost and what it had preserved. She thought about adding Richard's letter to the file, then decided against it. The investigation was closed. Richard was in prison. Meridian had survived. The file had served its purpose. It had revealed the truth, protected the company, established that no one, regardless of position or relationships, was above accountability. And it had taught Sophia something she'd carry for the rest of her career, that the right thing to do was rarely the easy thing, but it was always worth doing. She locked the file away one final time, turning off her office light. The file she'd hidden from the CEO had revealed who was destroying the company from the inside, and in doing so, it had saved everything worth saving.